This last month is going to go on record as the hottest July in Connecticut history, and everyone will be getting energy bills reflecting how much they had to use their ACs. Both energy and the environment will be on the top of every nutmegger's mind. Joining us today is a person who can speak to both of those topics. Commissioner Katie S. Dykes is Governor Ned Lamont's choice to run the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The Municipal Voice is Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford, and as always, be sure to give us a like in the comments below. Commissioner, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
That's great. Could you tell us a little bit about the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or DEEP, as a lot of us shorten it. What it does, what you regulate, beyond, obviously, environment and energy.
Sure. Well, it's an incredibly exciting time to be here. The Commissioner of DEEP, we're a very diverse agency with respect to our mission, our objectives. Really comes down to three kind of core areas that we have activity in. First is on the environmental conservation side. We're proud to be the stewards of over 100 state parks, wildlife management areas, and forests across the state, and helping through our Bureau of Outdoor Recreation to connect people to our tremendous.
Historically, it was the Department of Fish and Game or something, right?
Right. And so we've got a great team. In fact, during the summer months, our employment, our team really swells as we add a lot of seasonal employees who are helping to deliver terrific services that people are enjoying out in the parks. Just last weekend, I took my kids out to Saltwater Fishing Day. We were down at Fort Trumbull, and right off the pier, over 150 people, families were there. We had instructors who were able to help people learn, on rods and how to.
And this was open to everybody?
Absolutely, yeah. It's part of an initiative we have called No Child Left Inside. It's a popular program. It's been around for we're in the 13th year of this program, where we're really trying to connect a new generation of kids across Connecticut and families to all the great things there are to do to recreate out in the. So it was including.
What did that cost for participants?
Free. It's free. Yeah.
Even better.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So you can, if you're a family that is interested in getting outdoors, but you may not, maybe worry that you don't have the equipment that you need to go fishing or camping. If you just don't know where the parks are. And, this is a really easy way
for people who aren't necessarily full outdoorsy people. Yeah, but they might be looking to increase that.
Exactly. Or if you just moved to Connecticut, for example, another great way to get to know your neighborhood, because we have events throughout the year, all across the state,
and
including.
You can find about that maybe on
our website.
Nice.
Yep. And so, for example, we went, even in the wintertime, there's so many great things to do outdoors. I took my kids up to Burr Pond, up in the northwest corner of the state, where we enjoyed ice fishing in February. And so they've had the pleasure of fishing in both winter and now in the summer. But it's a great, the mission of that part of our agency is just so important. It builds on a strong legacy of commitment to preserving our natural resources, helping support. We have a lot of forest land in our state, and a lot of it privately owned. So we have a great program that's helping support private landowners and how to manage their forests sustainably. We have, with the wonderful resource of Long Island Sound, and a great team that helps to work on promoting the good quality of the water and the fisheries out in the Sound and those important resources. So that's just one part of our agency.
So you were that part also oversees fisheries?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We could talk about this forever.
I know we could. And then but I will try to be brief. So another part of our agency is our environmental quality branch. And so they're focused on things that you traditionally think about, like the U.S. EPA, in terms of regulating a whole host of activities that ensure that we have safe quality water supply, helping to clean up
industrial sites
and helping to clean up polluted sites. We have a legacy of, our economy really built with the Industrial Revolution and a lot of manufacturing in our state over the years that has contributed to some contamination, a lot of it in some of our older cities. And so it's a really exciting program that we implement together with the Department of Economic and Community Development to help rehabilitate those properties.
So working with the municipalities where these places are to help clean them up?
Yes, exactly. And we provide a limited amount of grant funds to do that. We help to clarify what the rules are in terms of what standards the properties need to be cleaned up to.
Okay.
And so working in partnership with municipalities, this is a really important program, not just for cleaning up sites within those towns, but also to prevent growth from happening and sprawl from happening out into pristine areas of the state. And so it's bringing back properties into productive use, back onto the tax rolls, contributing to thriving cities and preserving some of our.
Okay, so not only are you getting rid of the pollutants on it, but then you can use that same site that already has an industrial history for new industrial uses rather than cutting down a bunch of trees.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Great.
And it helps us to better utilize all kinds of infrastructure, like our roads, our utility infrastructure, when we can rehabilitate sites that are already.
They were already probably situated maybe near the train line or on a
you bet.
near road. Yeah.
That's right. So that's just another really tremendous program that we're excited to work with municipalities on. And of course, within our environmental quality branch, we have a strong focus on helping to ensure that we're delivering on these twin goals of preserving a safe and healthy environment for Connecticut citizens, and also helping to support economic expansion in our state. That's something that is a major priority for Governor Lamont. We're proud to be delivering on that.
Helping to develop green initiatives and businesses?
Well, actually really focusing on there's over 125 different permitting processes that we have a responsibility for. And, my focus as commissioner has been on ensuring that we're strengthening the predictability and the efficiency and the transparency of those regulatory processes for those regulated businesses.
And so all kinds of businesses
right.
And knowing what they need to do.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And so we launched a program, a new initiative in June called 20 by 20, where we shared with public 20 different goals that DEEP will be in terms of process improvements in our permitting programs that we are committing to make by the end of 2020.
Okay.
And we're going to be putting out quarterly reports to let people follow along with our progress. It's a range of different things that we're committing to in terms of helping to provide more predictability about how long it's going to take for DEEP to process your permit, helping to work through in some different permitting areas. We have a legacy of permits that have been pending for some time.
Okay.
So we're committing to reduce that percentage by a significant amount by the end of 2020. We were putting forward regulations that are helping to better clarify what, for example, cleanup standards will be for polluted sites. We're setting up a concierge process, so for businesses that are interacting with us, so that they know, where they are in the process as they go along. And also to put more data sets, more information that we have online, so it's more accessible to folks. We think that it's really important. Permitting processes are not just they need to be transparent, and not just because of the businesses that need to go through them, but also because of the communities in those areas. To
understand why those regulations are in place in the first place.
To understand that, and also to understand when a business is applying for a permit. Making sure that the community around them is aware of what the conditions of the site are, what kinds of activities are going to be undertaken. So we think that this transparency and predictability and efficiency is going to provide benefits for businesses and also for advocates and stakeholders and community members as well. And obviously, our ultimate objective with this is to, advance our goal of improving environmental quality. While people think about, process efficiency, unfortunately, sort of tainted with this idea of rollback and streamlining and shortcutting environmental regulation. Our model here in Connecticut is actually that if we can make these processes more efficient and work better, we're going to get sites cleaned up faster and more of them.
Be better results for everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. We have, some tremendous environmental assets here in our state that contribute to our economic competitiveness. For example, we know that, with the impacts of climate change, that drinking water, having good quality and quantity of drinking water supplies is going to be a real competitive advantage for our state over other states in the country and countries around the world as the years go by. And so investing now and continuing our legacy of protecting resources like that through these types of programs is incredibly important. And so we're excited to be delivering on that mission. I got through two parts of our agency.
Okay,
let me give you the third.
Okay, what's the third?
Well, the third is the extra E in deep, which is energy. And so we're proud to have a merged agency that covers both energy and environment. We know in order to tackle climate change and to do our part in Connecticut in reducing the amount of carbon emissions that are coming from our economy, that we need to have a kind of combined and holistic approach.
They're so intertwined, the two issues.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
Connecticut has a statute called the Global Warming Solutions Act that was passed in 2008 and has made us in good company with many states across the country that are leading on addressing climate change by committing us to reducing carbon emissions 80% by 2050 across our economy. And so one of the big success stories for carbon reduction already has been in our power grid. Okay. So Connecticut has made great strides, in part through programs that the Energy Policy Bureau and the energy part of DEEP has been leading on in investing in things like energy efficiency and deploying renewable power sources and other things that we're doing to help clean up the grid. And so we've seen emissions come down significantly in the way that our power is produced. A couple of things that we've done just in the last few months, for example, under Governor Lamont's leadership, we were able to see a contract negotiated that will keep the New England's largest power plant, the Millstone nuclear facility, online. It was in danger of shutting down. And this contract will ensure that it continues to operate for another 10 years if it's approved by the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. And had we not helped that plant stay online, we would see carbon emissions increase by 25% for all of New England, not just for Connecticut. So that's just one thing.
Millstone is nuclear, and therefore it doesn't have
zero carbon. That's right. And it's a major contributor to well-paying jobs and certainly supporting a lot of the towns that are in the southeast part of the state. And we're also investing in, that's an existing and kind of legacy zero carbon plant in our fleet, but we're also investing in new renewable resources that are helping decarbonize the grid. Offshore wind is a really promising new technology that's just becoming more cost effective.
Is there a good opportunity for that in Connecticut?
Well, this week we anticipate we'll be releasing a request for proposals for up to 2,000 megawatts of offshore wind potential, which is the equivalent of about 30% of the power supply of Connecticut. Now, we probably won't buy all of that all at once, but we were able to secure authorization from the legislature to procure that amount over time. And so we're excited to be leading.
So if the installation goes in, we've got permission to take a certain amount of it, but that rest would also be going into the grid.
Exactly. So we would buy the power through a power purchase agreement that's between the two electric utilities here in Connecticut, EverSource and United Illuminating, and the power and the wind developer, and then that would help ensure that the project can get financed and built.
So they know they've got a customer in the state that say we will take this much at least. Exactly. They can then get the loan.
Exactly. And locking in those power purchase agreements on a 20-year basis helps these projects get built. And of course, once they're built, the wind is free. So they tend to operate pretty economically. And so the power gets delivered onto the New England grid, and we would count all of the zero carbon aspect of that power towards meeting our carbon goals here in the state.
As we should.
And we know that we're blessed with a really terrific ports, deep water ports in our state.
We've talked recently with the New Haven Port Authority about what's going on there. A lot of interesting stuff. Yeah.
Very good. And so we know that not only Connecticut, but other states in our region are really interested in investing in offshore wind, which positions our ports really competitively to support some of the staging and construction and other types of work that will happen to make this offshore wind revolution work.
Yeah, and we spoke with the Port Authority. One thing that she brought that was interesting to me was the fact that part of the idea behind increasing traffic to the port is that it is more efficient and less emissions than the trucks going up and down I-95. If you
Yes.
get large barges coming in. So
Well, transportation is another, I've talked a lot about the power grid and what we're doing there. But transportation continues to be the largest contributing sector for carbon emissions in our state. About 38% of our carbon emissions come from the way we move.
And is that common throughout the states, or is that more a Connecticut problem?
Well,
because we have not as much big industry, but more kind of commuter kind of stuff going on.
So a lot of our vehicle miles traveled, which is how we compare the apples to apples of carbon emissions for the transportation sector, come from passenger vehicles. We're a small state, we're a dense state, but people tend to we have great employment centers around the state, and so people may be in their car single. What we want to move people away from is that single passenger internal combustion engine commuter trip that's happening. Plus, we know that there's a lot of bang for the buck that we get when we can switch to electric buses in transit. That's actually a major needle mover in terms of reducing carbon emissions, and very cost effective. So we're seeing through the investments, we have a grant round open right now for $12 million that we're going to be awarding. We're really excited to get applications from municipalities for moving away from diesel vehicles. So
is this for bus systems, or is this for like municipal fleets?
So both. And we've just last year we did a round of this grant program. It's funded by proceeds from the Volkswagen settlement, if you're familiar with that. So it's not extra taxes. It's something we got a settlement. We're using that. We did. It's an unfortunate circumstance where Volkswagen was cheating on their emissions tests. But the silver lining of that is that there's a major amount of settlement dollars awarded to different states, and we are using those dollars as other states are to help reduce emissions from diesel powered vehicles. So last year, for example, we were able to support our Department of Transportation investing in 10 plus buses that they're going to be deploying at their depot in Hamden that will be electric buses. And we know that other cities around Connecticut have been leading on looking at the way to electrify their transit. It's very important that we think about that. It's going to be a major, way to strategy for reducing emissions, but it's also helping to ensure that folks who are utilizing transit get to participate in these decarbonizing programs as well. So I'm very excited about moving that forward. There's so much to talk about now. We are doing so many things.
One thing that's of interest to our membership certainly is recycling.
Yes.
And there's been some changes recently in China, where basically with the new China cert policy, they don't want a lot of our recycling.
Exactly.
Certainly not before, I guess they refer to it as dirty materials, that they want extra clean plastic and stuff.
Right.
And this is because the tipping fees, the cost of getting rid of this stuff to go up.
Right.
So can you kind of give the short version of what's going on and what you guys are doing in relation to recycling in China?
Absolutely. Well, we certainly know that recycling has become more costly for municipalities as a result of this change in the Chinese policy about importing recyclables from Connecticut or from the U.S. So we're really excited here at our department to be able to implement some legislative authority that's enabling us to support things like anaerobic digestion that can create that industry here in the state.
To support companies that are interested in developing that?
Yes, and being able to process those organics, which tend to be wet and heavy and more expensive to transport. So it's great to be able to process those locally. And we have some great examples of that, how that's already emerged, and we're looking forward to expand that further. But we're really, I would say this is not a problem that DEEP can solve on its own. One thing that's very important as we are, as towns are addressing these commodity changes for recycling costs, is that for me as the commissioner, it just, doubles my commitment that we need to develop strong partnerships with municipalities to help us find the way forward and find the best solutions. We have our perspective and the resources that, and the expertise that we have here at our department, but municipalities are living this every day. And it starts with having a good relationship, building up trust between our department, improving the way that we communicate with municipalities and listen to their ideas. That's how we're going to find the best solutions to this. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very important to me.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. So on to one of the other E's, energy. According to Wallet Hub, Connecticut has the highest energy costs of any state in the country. Why is that?
So that could be a whole episode just on its own. We know it's not the kind of list, the ranking that you want to be at the top of. But Connecticut has for decades been in this unenviable position of having some of the highest electricity rates in the country. In part, this is because we have. There's a lot of contributors to it. We've seen over time that the cost of power, the actual generation of the power, was a big driver of costs. That's actually come down over the last because there's different components to your bill. I should start with that. There's the cost of generating the power. And then there's the cost of transporting the power, transmitting it, and delivering it to the customer. And each of those contributes to the overall rate that you're paying. The cost of generation has come down, and in part that's
delivery hasn't.
Right, and delivery has gone up. So generation has come down in part because we've seen our grid transition to lower cost fuels. Natural gas, for example, has become more abundant in the continental U.S., and that's displaced higher priced energy sources like coal and oil. Exactly. And we anticipate that as we build out more things like renewable resources that don't have fuel costs, we have to pay for the upfront costs of getting them built, but over time, types of resources will insulate us from being exposed to, gas or oil prices shooting up. And by the way, keeping our nuclear power plant running is a major contributor to keeping costs down. If that plant had retired, we would have seen the need to build out 2,000 megawatts worth of new power plants.
So would that have had kind of an immediate impact on?
Oh yes, billions of dollars worth of replacement costs for that facility. But that's the generation portion of the bill that's come down. The transmission and distribution costs have gone up. In part, that's because we have a lot of aging infrastructure in our state. Connecticut experienced a lot of expansion in the 60s and 70s. A lot of those poles and wires that you see
still the same
on the street are reaching the end of useful life, and they have to be replaced. We've had a lot of impacts from storms. This is the beginnings of the trends that we're going to be seeing more of with climate change.
Hurricane comes through, Sandy knocks all the trees over.
Exactly.
And some people are out of power for days on end.
Exactly. That's right. So a windstorm, for example, as we experienced, I believe in October of 2017, could cost $60 million just to repair and bring back the grid back on. So, those service interruptions are always a real challenge when they occur, and they can be a big driver of cost. So the utilities are investing in things like trimming trees, tens of millions of dollars for those programs to help prevent those outages from occurring and keep the system in good working repair. So it's a range of different things that's contributing to those costs. But the big question is, what can we do about it?
Yeah, how do we make it cheaper?
Exactly. So, and that's what we work on and think about all the time. The most important thing is that we can, when we are going out to, procure the things that we need in order to keep a clean and reliable grid working, that we utilize open competitive RFPs that don't pick winners and losers, but bring competition to every aspect of our power generation supply. That's very important. Two is energy efficiency. When we're talking to municipalities, when we're talking to businesses and families in the state, we have award-winning energy efficiency programs here that give customers control over their energy usage and help them lower their bills. So their rates may be higher.
Like replacing all the streetlights with LEDs and stuff?
Yes, municipalities have been making great strides with those replacing or switching to LED street lighting. That's a great help, especially in the wintertime when we see the need for lighting occur earlier in the day. And those are the winter months are when we are most worried about grid reliability. And so reducing our power usage through LED street lighting is really helpful. Whole building retrofits can be really cost effective when you can bundle together a lot of different measures all at once and get the.
So taking existing building and retrofitting it to be more efficient?
Yes, exactly. And that can include everything from switching out your lighting to LEDs to improving the weatherization of a
Better
building.
Insulation.
Exactly. Right. So we encourage, municipalities to look for those kinds of opportunities and businesses as well. The other great opportunity that municipalities have is installing renewables.
So like solar.
Right. Very
popular. Like virtual net metering.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very popular program across the state through the virtual net metering program, which the cap for that program has been expanded to $20 million, which is going to allow some more virtually net metered projects to get built. Those help to, those customers who install them can see immediate bill reductions.
And so for people at home who might not know, this virtual net metering is basically if you have solar, whether it could be towns or individuals, right?
That's right. So municipalities or agricultural or state facilities are the ones that can participate in that program.
And they might be making more power than they actually need right there, so it goes into the grid.
Right. So you can get a solar facility built, for example, and then credit the production of that solar facility against multiple different meters that you may have, multiple different facilities that you may have within your municipal operation. So it's a really popular program. But those are some of the things that we can, that customers can do in an immediate way to help offset their bill costs. And when, especially with energy efficiency, when you install that light bulb, or that LED street light, of course, you're reducing your bill as a municipality, but you're also helping all Connecticut customers avoid the need to build new power plants or build more transmission lines. And so
you're contributing for the state as a whole, not just yourself.
Yes. So there's benefits to the participant. Those are enormous. And then benefits to everybody else. Saving
money, helping everybody else, helping the environment.
You've got it. That's right. And so that's why we call efficiency our first fuel. And it's important, for municipalities to think about that, not just for their reducing their costs, but also from an economic competitiveness standpoint, because they're helping to lower bills for, businesses.
So if a company wants to come in, if you could say have better electric rates, it's less here. That's an attractive thing to large companies that might be using a lot of power.
That's right. And by the way, we're thinking about how to lead by example in that regard at the state level too. So Governor Lamont's very first executive order signed in April committed to the state to expanding its popular Lead by Example program. We've rebranded it. It's now called Greener Gov CT.
Greener Gov CT.
That's right. And we're committing to aggressive targets for reducing our carbon footprint and our energy usage across our state facilities.
State facilities.
That's
right.
So
state government itself,
state
in the
operations.
Buildings.
You've got it.
Vehicles.
Yes.
Everything.
Transportation, waste, water, electricity usage, and thinking about opportunities to support renewable deployment.
So a lot of cooperation among different departments, it sounds like.
It's so exciting. We had a meeting just 2 weeks ago, over 100 agency staff who were participating. Each agency was required under this executive order to designate a sustainability officer. Every agency is going to be writing a sustainability performance plan. They're all going to be posted publicly so people will be able to track our progress. But the exciting part about it is that we've launched project teams for each of these different sectors that we want to make progress in. Because it's one thing to set a target. It's another thing to figure out how to get a project done.
And having the people on that team that actually know the business and know where the efficiencies could be found.
That's right. So for example, and this is a very a common experience for municipalities as well, is it's really, sitting down with the business officers in the agencies and sitting down our Department of Administrative Services and Office of OPM to figure out how do we make these investments. For example, when an agency has a vehicle, a fleet vehicle that needs to be retired and replaced, how do we make it a business as usual process to be able to switch to an electric vehicle? It's been a really exciting.
strange, foreign thing. It's just part of how you do things now.
That's right. That's the form that
and it's something new and it's more efficient.
Which means that we have to figure out things like getting EV charging infrastructure installed, where to put it, what kinds of infrastructure that requires. But what's exciting is that we're already seeing, for example, some of the analysis around the operations and maintenance costs for electric vehicles coming in competitive with traditional combustion engines.
So maybe some people have in the back of their head that switching to this kind of technology would be expensive for the town.
Right.
Great idea. We'd love to save the planet, but bottom line. But now it doesn't have to be that.
But we're starting to see that with the changes in the cost of these vehicles, and
more
because
and more
they need less than gasoline-powered vehicles. Actually, they need less maintenance. They tend to run more reliably, and the electricity fuel compared to the gas fuel. When you add all of that up, this is penciling out today. So we're working.
It already makes economic sense,
right? Yeah. So we have to work out the piece around the charging infrastructure, and we're really excited to be thinking about how we get that part done. But I mention all this just to say that we shouldn't all have to reinvent this wheel, 170 times, once at the state level and then in every town.
Towns,
Right. I see this implementation of this executive order as an opportunity for us to really partner with municipalities and help share and learn from municipalities who have already made progress in these areas, how to make this business as usual transition as quickly as possible. I have mentioned as well Sustainable CT.
Okay. Sustainable CT, we like Sustainable CT.
Really proud to be on the board of that organization. Lynn Stoddard and her team have been doing a terrific job with just that piece, is helping towns identify what they want to prioritize and work on.
Following them along, and towns are progressing, getting the silver certifications.
Exactly. So that program has really made it very easy for towns to identify goals that they can work on. And my focus as the Deep Commissioner and working with our state Greener Gov CT effort is to help make sure that the project deployment and implementation, those lessons learned can be shared. And we may even find that there's opportunities to do group purchasing and find other economies of scale in terms of how to make these transitions occur.
So. I know we've talked about some higher level things, some technology, electricity, net metering. But if I was paying attention strictly through my social media feeds, the plastic bag ban.
Yes.
A lot of people were very excited one way or the other about plastic bags. I've seen some people, friends of mine online, who, saw it as some sort of way to make money, a cash grab, get that 10 cents. But that's not really the impetus behind the plastic bag. 10 cents now, and then
a ban. Listen, all of we know in the aggregate, right, at the high level, that moving away from plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, is so important from the environmental standpoint, especially as a coastal state with a lot of important marine species.
It gets right in the water.
Yes, it's hugely damaging. We know that by 2050, we may reach a point where there's more plastic in the ocean than fish, and so it's incredibly, when you put it in that context, and then you're at
that free little
counter
plastic bag
at the gas station.
So
that's right. It gives it's an opportunity for everyone to sort of make a choice to change something about their lifestyle. Remembering to bring, a multi-use bag with them, a cloth bag. I bring tote bags, and
so
just once you get in the habit.
At the state being like, we've got their 10 cents now for that bag. It's about using less bags.
That is the point. And sometimes, in all of those interactions that people are having when a new policy is rolled out, there's a lot of conversations happening at a lot of cash registers over the last couple of weeks as people are encountering this. So the most important message I want to share is that this is part of a whole statewide transition that is helping us do a really important thing for the environment. But a tax versus a ban. I think the objective of having this sort of two-step process is not just about revenue raising. It's really about providing some flexibility for people as
easing
we move
into
the program.
It, not suddenly you can't get
That's
it.
right.
Suddenly,
it's still an available option if you want to pay.
So maybe you remember next time.
Yes.
You don't want to pay that 20 cents. I'd probably bring it back.
Right, so that in time when the ban goes into place, we've already got people accommodated. That's right, and I've made that transition. At my house, actually, my husband does a lot of the grocery shopping. He's gotten into the bags, you know, for years. I still sometimes trip up and forget, and you get to the store and, you know, you thought they were in the back seat and they're not. It happens. So you know, this sort of phased in approach will help us all make those changes and get into new habits over time. But they are habits worth getting into.
Definitely.
And as we think about, of course, plastic bags are just one piece of the puzzle. We have a major dent to make in terms of our plastic consumption across the state, and you know, people are very focused on this. We hear a lot from students, from kids, about the impacts of recycling and the importance of not consuming plastic, single-use plastic.
Walking on the side of the street anywhere, you know, plastic in the gutter, plastic everywhere.
Yes.
It's hard not to see it.
Yes, that's right. And so once you get into the habit, it's doable. Is there some grumbling along the way?
There is some grumbling.
Probably.
Some of the grumbling that I see, certainly on social media things, which I'm looking at on my phone through Wi-Fi. And you guys actually oversee utilities and therefore some of the Wi-Fi stuff in the state.
Yes.
So there are
very important to Governor Lamont. I know.
Very important municipalities. A lot of them are looking into providing Wi-Fi to people. So could you speak a little bit to the future of Wi-Fi?
So really excited. First of all, Governor Lamont, I think, deserves all the credit as someone who's really made this a major priority. He sees this as a way to ensure that is competitive from an economic standpoint in terms of attracting businesses, attracting the millennial generation that needs to and wants to
his
connect
business background and that stuff. Tracking tech stuff, I think is something you'd be interested in.
That's right. And there's a lot of, you know, dollars from a private capital that are poised on the sidelines, ready to invest. This year, the governor secured passage of a major piece of legislation that establishes a 5G council to help streamline and speed up the process for siting 5G facilities in some of our state properties. So DEEP is proud to be a part of that process, which is already kicked off. And I've heard from some of the private industry players that just the passage of that bill, well, that's not, you know, that's one piece of the puzzle of how to accelerate the deployment of this infrastructure across the state. It's really grabbed attention from the boardrooms of these communications companies to look to Connecticut as a place to invest. I know that within the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, you know, they have or PURA. PURA has a lot of jurisdictional tools to help speed access to utility right of way. Which can be a very important place to be siting these types of facilities.
Municipalities get these projects off the ground.
Yes, and you know, while there's been a lot of focus on what the right investment model should be for broadband, for example, whether it should be municipal, you know, ownership or you know, continuing with the private investment model, which I think has been the most impactful. One thing is clear to me, which is
some municipalities want to take control of their
Yes. And but you know, to me, the low-hanging fruit here is just there's a lot of process efficiencies that we really need to get implemented to ensure that when communications companies want to attach their equipment to the utility pole, that attachment process can move as quickly and transparently and predictably as possible.
And it hasn't necessarily always done that in the past?
I will say I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I'm really excited. You know, DEEP works as a party at PURA proceedings, and so we're really thinking about ways that we can help bring our advocacy to bear on ways to streamline that process. I think that is going to be really impactful, and it's not hugely controversial. It's just about good process. The utilities have a responsibility to make sure that their poles are safe and not overloaded. And at the same time, they're seeing the volume of applications to attach to the poles increase significantly. So we need to make sure that that those safeties can be done quickly. And adequately and in a way that can help accelerate this transition to a 5G economy.
Well, 5G economy sounds great. Fast internet connections in a clean and lovely state. Thanks for being with us.
Well, we couldn't do without a great and productive partnership with municipalities. So the last thing I would say, Matt, is, you know, I love some of the best meetings that I've had in my first few months on the job have been with first selectmen, have been with mayor and others who've reached out. And when I've had the opportunity to go visit them, to hear directly directly from them about how they're solving these problems on the ground. We have a lot, it's important for us to have good ideas as to be listening and hearing the great ideas that are already playing out and think about ways we can support them. So if there's anyone out there I haven't had a chance to meet with yet, I hope you reach out.
Get your help in making their communities cleaner and safer.
You bet. Katie.Dykes@ct.gov, and appreciate it.
Everyone heard that. She's at it. Thanks again.
Matt, thank you so much.
Hope to talk again.
I'd like to thank our guest, Commissioner Dykes, for coming on the show. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM Chat series on our YouTube page. Just search for CCM Chats and you'll find them all in one convenient playlist. For those of you listening live, we'd like to remind you that tomorrow, August 15th, is City Hall Selfie Day, a day to show your love for local government. Snap a selfie in front of your government building, tag them in a pic, and be sure to use the hashtag CityHallSelfie. You can also tag us at CCM_4CT.
Max, 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 Max.